Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ryan. I want to talk with you today about business proposals. It's the time of year where you're looking at holidays, getting into the new year, and how can you look at all the different documents you use for your business proposals, and kind of consolidate, clean up, triage, get rid of some things, add some things that you've been wanting to add for a while, and really tighten your processes internally. This is a much bigger topic and a kind of conversation that really we've talked about on our YouTube channel a lot. But I want to really focus on a couple things that are most helpful as we go into the new year. I'm going to start off by segmenting and sectioning your business proposals. When you think of it from I'm going to just use like a B2C company that kind of does, let's say like they do something in a construction space, or maybe it's a home service space, but they do something to help consumers. When it comes to their proposals, it could be as simple as here's a quote, here's the price. It's boring, but it gets the job done. My recommendation at minimum is have obviously what you're doing, line items. You need to have any disclaimers at the bottom. If you have a license or contract number, you should have that. Any certifications, you should have that. Line items and prices. I particularly don't like this type of price, this type of proposal and quote. I'm going to say it's more of a quote. It's not really a proposal. It's here's your quote. Do you like it or not? Take it or leave it. It's just always a very unprofessional way to go about things. However, it is kind of the standard in a lot of industries. My recommendation for this talk is really what can you do to up your game and really polish this experience for your customers via segmenting and sectioning. So let me dig in a little bit here on what I mean by that. Segmenting is look at your proposal as different segments of an approval process. And you can shorten this as much as you'd like. I would be careful with what you shorten, but you can shorten it. The first thing you know that segments that your customer or your client are going to need is what are you doing and how much is it going to cost, how long is it going to take to do, and then any contractual information they need. So those are the four segments. Yes, you can add in more, you can remove stuff, but those are the four. When it comes down to how you go about this, let's look at the one paper quote. I don't recommend that. So let's take that, kind of upgrade it. Let's say we, instead of just doing that one pager, you actually say, let's put a cover slide on there with my logo. Let's put who I'm delivering this quote to. Here's the date on which I'm delivering it. Here's kind of the key service image or illustration that I'm going to do for them. Let's say it's a installation for some type of, let's say flooring or some type of plumbing. We're changing the plumbing or the windows for the home. Give them some visual to kind of tie you to what you do and how the quality in which you do it. So I would recommend have a cover page, and then the first thing would be a letter that you write. Now it should be something that it does come from, whether it's the owner or the VP of sales or the sales team director, but it should be something that, hey, Ms. Smith, here's your proposal. We spent some time on this. We're really looking forward to working with you. Here's what we're going to do. And I would say here's the top 3 things that we're going to do to make your life better, your home better, or whatever the experiences that you're giving to them. So it's kind of like, almost like, wow, they did this custom for me. And to be honest, you should do it custom for your customer. You've hopefully met with them. You've had a discovery process where you've seen what they need. And you've talked about, okay, here's the 3 things we're going to do. Here's the 2 things we're going to do. Here's the 10 things we're going to do. And line up your proposal where that first slide is that welcome letter. Going on to the next part, I would always recommend dig in a little bit on what those should be, those deliverables should be. I always take a phased approach. I want to talk a little bit about phases, because what I like about phases, you can tie them into your pricing. So we have your segments, which kind of, you have a couple segments based on what you want to communicate to your potential customer, your prospect. Then we're going to go into the phases. I always say break down your projects into phases, and here's the reason why. In some cases, there's a lot of memes out there about, oh, how much should I charge? What should I charge? And this talk isn't about what you should charge. I want to be clear about that. That's a different conversation. But how you can help the customer understand what you charge is that you are setting yourself as a subject matter expert in this space by saying, hey, in order to do the project, get it done well and in a timely manner, here's the phase. Phase 1 is this. Phase 2 is this. Phase 3 is this. And really, what it helps, sometimes when you just do those line items, they'll say, oh, we don't need that. Oh, we don't need that. Oh, we don't need that. And all of a sudden you're like, man, do I even want to do this project? Where if you do phase approach, that, there's a lot of things that, in a sense, that they all intertwine together. You can't just pull out a phase. Oh, we're going to pull out phase 2. Well, wait, in order to get from phase 1 to phase 3, what happened to phase 2? That, in a sense, it helps the customer understand that this is our process. Now, if you're fine with doing the just big list of check boxes and they can choose what they want, that's fine. But I'm going to tell you that in order to keep your potential customer and your client organized to adapt to your process, I recommend a phased approach. There's another reason, and that is with that phased approach, you can set up sections in your proposal that say, here's the pricing for this phase, here's the pricing for this phase, here's the pricing for this phase. What's nice is that they're not then saying, oh, I don't want to pay for this, I don't want to pay for this. In a sense, you've sectioned your phases into prices, so you know that the block of this is going to cost this, the block of this is going to cost this. And what happens then is you then take that of those phases and you say, okay, our initial deposit is we want 20% upfront. Okay, there. After 2 weeks, we want another 20%, and then 40%, and then when we're done, we want 20%. So you're taking the phased approach, getting them to say yes to that. This is our process. This makes sense for what we do, and you're tying dollar value to what you're going to add to their life or to their business or whatever you're servicing them based on phases, not on line items. So I recommend switching to phases that make your life sane and their life sane. Now, another little wrinkle that I always like to say to all businesses that I consult with and talk with is, what type of recurring value can you add to your customer, to your client? If you're a service industry, hey, you do a monthly checkup or a quarterly checkup and it costs, whatever, $50, and we're going to come out and we're going to clean everything, make it nice, trim around the air conditioning units, and we're going to do this, we're going to do this, or whatever. It could be if you're an IT cybersecurity company, you're going to check, their website, make sure everything, the SSL license is secure, make sure their domains are updated, make sure there's no gaps, whatever the case may be. You can set up those recurring sections in the pricing segment of your proposal. You can set up that phase. It's not really a part of phase. It's recurring revenue that you're going to gain for your business. I think all businesses should have some type of recurring revenue stream. I think it's very risky, and we're going to talk about that later, as far as risk that you add to your business when you don't have some type of recurring revenue. And don't go, overboard with thinking of what you can do. Make sure it adds value to your customer. Just don't throw ideas at the wall for that recurring solution. Make sure you really put together a product or service that makes sense to your customer and it adds value to their life. Last but not least, I did want to talk about the steps. So I talked about the proposal, the different phases, and you can add or subtract, and I have a whole kind of methodology and thought process on how you should set them up. I do recommend at the end, after you show pricing, I would recommend time and when it would be completed, deadlines, and then say at the end that you always want to, even though they're not on a website, they're in a proposal, I would say put testimonials in there. A lot of clients of mine say, well, isn't that weird? It's a proposal. Why am I putting testimonials in there? In most cases, they might not have gone to your website. They might have been a word-of-mouth referral, or they might have saw you on social and they reached out to you, and all of a sudden you built a connection. So they might not have gone to your website, or you might not have a great website with testimonials there. But if you have an active business and you have a good review base, you probably have reviews online. Put them in your proposal. It's not bad. I also like putting full testimonials and referrals and quotes that from your previous customers to help add validity to what you're proposing. Last but not least, I do recommend putting in a contract. And this is something that there's a lot of subject matter experts in the space, consulting space, that say do the proposal first, get that signed off on, then move to the contract. And I agree with that. There's a lot of validity in that. However, I also am going to say that there's tools out there where you can have the contract kind of learn from the proposal. And what I mean by that, you can have little check boxes where they choose yes to this additional revenue, and then it adds it into the contract nicely. So you can have some dynamic logic in your proposals where you can have that carry through and pass forward, so the contract is updated dynamically based on if they add on a recurring product or service. So I do recommend having the contract in there. In some cases, if it's a much larger project, I do recommend do them separate. Get a sign off on a proposal, get them, you go back and forth on that. I recommend only cloud-based. I don't recommend PowerPoint decks going back and forth. I don't recommend Excel spreadsheets and emails. And no, try to get a really good software. Use some type of SaaS software like Proposify is what we use. But there's a lot of them out there. I do recommend Proposify, but there's a lot out there. That allows you to have feedback back and forth. You make changes, you update. Everyone signs off and agrees to the proposal. If it's a big project, you then move on to the contract. The contract is pretty much just taking what the proposal is saying, bringing it into a legal document. I call it an agreement. It's a contract. And then you all sign off on that, and then that's good. I always want to call out one thing, and the one weakness of the proposal and contract together is the schedule and the timing and the scope of work, statement of work. I want to be very clear that it's hard with some larger projects to clarify that all in one document. So I do recommend breaking them into multiple documents. It'll save you pain in the future. That, hey, well, here's the proposal. Okay, that's great, but here's the contract. And I would also be very, very wary on putting, we will be done by XYZ date. We will be done by February 10th, 2023. Because in this world, there's so many things that can change. And we're going to talk about that in a later block. But you know, you can't control weather. And I know for those of you in the construction space, acts of God, acts of nature, you always put that clause in there. Do put that clause in there. However, just, you know, I would say be very broad when you talk about schedules. I've even seen some construction companies put, we will be done in the year 2023. I think you should be a little bit more concise than that. I think maybe quarter March 2023, those are much better dates. We, as a design agency, we'll be done within 30 days of March 20th. So before or after, not you know, we always shoot that window. So it's a kind of a 60-day window. If you look at March 20th, add 30 days. If you look at March 19th, you know, or March 20th minus 30 days, that's our window. And we always want to try to be before deadline. However, we always want to cover ourselves because of the fact in our space, it's based on user feedback. So we want to make sure that if you know, if revisions are coming in 2 weeks, 3 weeks late, well, there's our time. We got to move now. So always be mindful of that and realize, depending on your industry, what you should have in your when you're crafting your proposals. Now is the time to work on your proposals. I think as we go into a new year, at least check your pricing tables. Look at your different, you know, options that you craft for your customers, whether it's services or products. Look at them and say, hey, can we adjust? I do recommend take a long look at what you can do to build recurring revenue for your business. I think that can only help you if it adds value to your customers. And also your customers, if you can add good value, they love it. They have a relationship. They have their person for whatever your service is. Let's say it's a home security, home alarms. They have their person. Build a relationship with your customers that way. And there's so much automation that can be done that could provide additional service to them and additional value, that if you can bake that into a package and in a sense sell that to your customers, you're golden. So always think of those creative ways in which you can build that recurring revenue. It's going to strengthen your business and your cash flow overall. So I highly recommend that. All right, thanks. We'll see you in the next segment. Now is the time to check your email best practices. Hi, I'm Dr. Ryan, everyone. Welcome back. I have to talk about this. It's a personal pet peeve of mine, but it's also something that I think as any business owner, or if you're a freelancer or consultant, you kind of need to, this is a good time to check yourself and learn. I studied communications as an undergrad, and I didn't learn a whole lot. I love communications. I'm not the best at it. But I did learn some things that were really profound in the way you can influence people via communications that I don't think a lot of us in the professional practices and services and digital space have carried from when I studied. And let me begin with that. So it is really using the power of someone's name. When I say, hey, Amber, hey, Rachel, how's your day going? You know, there's there's clout there, there's respect there, there's love there, that you care about them enough to know their name. So I'm going to start with that kind of just thought on using people's names. I got an email from a former colleague of mine, and I recognized the name kind of, but the email subject was kind of vague. I don't even remember the subject, but the first line said hello, comma, and then they went into what they were, catching up. And it was actually a warm email. And I kind of wondered, I'm like, why did they just say hello, Ryan? So I'm like, nah. And it gave me a weird bad taste. Not that I care. I mean, everyone calls me Dr. Ryan. I don't care about that. But the point is, why not just hello, Ryan? It's 4 characters. It's not like this is a long name. There's no reason not to put their name, comma. Okay, so I'm going to say something from email etiquette. Make it just a goal for you as an individual, if you're listening to this, that no matter what, when you're sending out an email, hello, their name, comma, or hi. I think hi is a little more informal, but who cares? Hey, I think that's informal, but it's okay. At least put their name. Now, should you put, Robert, comma, it's a little abrupt, but that's okay. My point is, start using people's name in the new year. It's 2023, coming into 2023 now. Let's change that. Let's shift that. And for those of you that listen, like, ooh, I do that. It's okay. It's something that I think it's an easy thing to fix and to learn from. Now, I want to switch this a little bit to internal emails and user groups. Is there etiquette to be done there? No, you don't need to be like in chat. Hello, Amber. Hello, Rachel. No, just get to the point. It's chat. It's more. It's almost like you're just, hey, you're in the trenches working together. Now, if it is something that is outside of your workspace, if you're a hybrid or if you're remote workers, everyone, then yeah, I mean, to come into chat and just list off your demands, it's going to come off. Ugh. Also, I've seen these emails, and I know for all the project managers in the world that get frustrated by this and traffic people, that you see these lists of demands and then thank you, period. It's like, whoa. I didn't even say yes to this. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know who you are. So kind of just take a step back sometimes, put on your etiquette hat, and just say, how does this read? And honestly, it's okay to ask a neighbor if you're in a hybrid space, or if you're all in the same office. Ask the person next to you, do I sound nasty? Do I sound like a bitch? It's okay to say that, because it's better to have your colleague check it and catch it than you send it and your vendor or your client or your customer is like, whoa, what's wrong with them today? So please do yourself a favor and do your brand a favor and have people check your stuff quickly. It's not like read every word and grammar check me. No. But just sometimes if it's something you haven't engaged with a lot, have them check it. I'm known in the office, I think, in a bad way, to send out my list of demands. I did it this morning where I'm just like, bang, 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 who's doing this, who's doing this, who's doing this? And I mean, everyone behind the camera is like, yup, because it's true. I do it sometimes, and it's just like, and I do it in love, but it doesn't come across as love. So even though remember I said I studied communication, don't do it that well, it's true. So that's what I want to talk on etiquette. Now, here's the thing. I want to take it to the whole business side of the world as far as how you craft an email campaign. It is very easy to put in personalization. Why is that word hard for me? Personalization into your emails. And what I mean by that is a colleague of mine recently sent out an email to a whole bunch of people and did the hello, comma, and then put a link to set up a meeting with them. And, there were things about the email that were strong. There were things about it that I was like, ugh. But the biggest thing I saw is that even though it was a group send, which, you can still put in those personalizations. So I would recommend instead take a step back and say, hey, let's send this out as a campaign rather than a email, and send it out as a campaign where it can still come individually from you, but it's individual emails going out to people that are custom to them. Hello, Bob. Hello, Jane. And actually then, you can craft that accordingly. Now, I don't always recommend doing that. In fact, I'm not a fan of that, but it can be done, especially if it's an email list or something like that, where you can add in that personalization and still add value to them. The biggest thing is make sure you're adding value. I'm always going to punch on that as far as add value. If you're sending out an email just to send out an email and talk about you, then hold on, give value, please. A lot of our clients and customers are just like, oh, let's just send this out. And like, how can we add value to the reader? And know your audience. It's key too, that if you have an audience that is in, healthcare and education or in technology, make sure you're crafting something in there that they can take away and say, man, this is a great email. Michael Jonda does a fantastic job with that, with his email newsletters and blasts, where he adds really good value to his subscribers, where they gain something. And not all of them are relevant. Sometimes you're going to read the first subject and you skim and it's not that great. But in most cases, he spends a lot of time crafting those emails for his audience. And he doesn't really, I'm going to say, I know he doesn't proofread every comma and every grammar. Sometimes it's just, he likes it sometimes when the grammar isn't perfect, but it's him. And be authentic. That's kind of the point of what I was saying. Another thing I want to mention is the scannability. I kind of touched on it quickly. Sometimes if you are sending a longer format email where you maybe have, highlights from 3 or 4 blog posts, and you have, a big news update for your company and a fundraiser for your organization, you have a whole bunch of stuff going on, take a step back and look at the email and say, hey, is it still scannable? And I'm talking about more about marketing emails, but it could be a personal email if you're getting long-winded. Look at it and say, is this scannable? If someone who is like, I'm catching up with for the first time in a couple of years, can they scan it and say, oh, cool, this is something that, here's 3 bullet points, here's a headline. Okay, cool. They can scan it quickly, and then if they're interested, they're going to get more into it. I'm going to tell you what is the effect of this. The effect of it is, if you're sending out stuff that's just a big word salad of crap, and people are looking at it like, where do I even begin? They're going to get angry. And over time, if you keep doing that, guess what? They're going to unsubscribe and say, I don't want anything to do with that brand. But if you send really well thought, constructed, scannable emails that whether they say hello Bob or hello Jane or not, I think they should. But if it's a marketing email, it doesn't have to. But if it's unique and personalized and has really good content custom to your audience, you're going to have people that are going to follow you. And at some point, if you want them to drive them to action, whether it's, fill out a form or extend the conversation or set up a phone call or set up a meeting or buy a product or sign up for a service, they're going to be in a better space to do it. But again, I always say, don't go with that being the mindset that we need to get them to buy something. Come on. It's not, no. If you can't add value, don't do an email blast. If you can't add, something to their business or to their organization in the form of, ideas or constructs, then don't email. Just think about it first and then send it. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk quickly on email building list tactics. I do recommend well done pop-ups or sign-up bars on your site. A lot of people, this is a common question I get, should we have a pop-up? Google's gone back and forth over this over the years, that pop-ups are from the devil. I still think they're from the devil. But if you have to, and I know that there's some industries that really it's kind of almost understood, I would say do it in a very smart way and an intuitive way, where once they say no thanks or they X out, that it's, it remembers that they said X or, no thanks, and it remembers, and it doesn't, the next page they go to, it says, hey, would you like to sign up for a newsletter? That's very annoying and jarring. So I always recommend, make sure if you're going to do it in a way that makes sense. From a Google standpoint, I think they actually have rules to follow, guidelines to abide by, and we'll put those either in the bottom or on a blog post somewhere to give you more information. It's always it's not always changing. It's always perfecting with Google. But Amber, make a note to get that on the in the comments. And if someone knows, please put them in the comments. I think that would be great if you have any ideas. Other than that, that's emails. Kind of just check yourself this year. It is a new year where you can kind of quickly add one little thing. Just say, hey, I'm going to use people's names. And that's just not for email. Let's take it a step further. Why can't, when you walk up in the morning, Amber does a great job of this, and Rachel where was like, hey, Amber, hey, it's human, okay? And I know for those of you that work remote, it's a little different. So what? Pop in the chat and say, how you doing today? There's nothing wrong with that, okay? This is a crazy time of year coming into a new year, and I just think that let's start changing that. It can be as easy as emails, just putting the person's name, but it can also extend into chat in the workplace where you actually ask how people are doing and know more about their life. Thanks so much. Talk soon. Okay, this segment is about future-proofing your business in 2023. What can you do? I'm going to use an acronym that's kind of become I guess everyone in the office is making fun of me. It's my favorite acronym, but it is. It's a good one. It's actually a bad one, but it's good. I'll explain. It's called VUCA. It's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. The really good kind of definition for what is VUCA, what is a VUCA year, what is, how should we prepare for it? It'd be COVID. That's a good kind of, say that's a year where no one could have planned for that. No one could have planned that, oh, the world's going to shut down for X amount of days, months, years, whatever. So no one could have planned for that. So that's definitely not just volatility. That's uncertainty, that's complexity, it's ambiguity, it's all of it. But how do you prepare for that? As we go into 2023, there's still a lot of potential economic not good signs that I want to approach this topic not on, oh, the world is ending, fear. No. I don't want to approach it that way. I want to approach it with positivity and faith. However, I want to also say, what can we learn from what's been done to truly future-proof what we're going to do in 2023? And it's actually, when it kind of comes down to that, it's not hard. Now, is there still going to be stress? Is there still going to be fear potential? Yes, all those things. But I really want to encourage everyone listening and watching online that it shouldn't be something that scares us. It should be something that we can go forward with a plan and say, hey, we know this could happen. And what are we going to do to prepare for it? I'm going to read a couple statistics just because these are great statistics, but from Statista, I don't know, Statista? I'm not sure how to say it, but January 2021 to July 2022, the U.S. inflation rate rose from 1.4% to 8.26. 26, not sex. 8.26, the largest increase in 40 years. That's crazy. And that's something that leads us to think, okay, what can we get prepared for as inflation keeps increasing? And some people say, well, yeah, inflation, that's just government and, that doesn't faze us. It does. If you think about your grocery bill, if you think about gas, if you think about all the things that are happening in our world, inflation has a direct effect on that. Let me read the next one. From Jeff Cox, CNBC. The U.S. GDP fell from 1.6 in Q1 2022 and 0.9% in Q2 2022, sending a strong signal, a recession signal. So pretty much 2 quarters back to back of decreased GDP equals we're in a recession. Now, politicians, they always bat each other over the head. I'm not going to get into that, but are we in a recession? Are we not? I mean, I'm going to say that we are. It is different. 1.6 to 0.9 is a pretty big, that's 0.7% of a decrease in the GDP. That's definitely, by what we've always called it, that's a recession. However, I don't want to get into the politics of it. I just want to say that people are hurting more than they have 5-10 years ago, and that's something that we all need to be aware of when it comes to how our businesses run. How can we be more efficient? How can we do all these things to prepare for what's to come? And that's where wisdom comes into play. I think I have one more stat. Yeah, I have one more. This is a good one. From Trading Economics, January 2022 to September 2022. So we're looking at what? 8 months, 9 months. The U.S. prime lending rate rose from 3.25 to 6.25. Where's all my home buyers at? Yeah, that hurts. Now, luckily I have some phenomenal colleagues and clients that work in this space. And there is a difference from 2008. And I'm going to go over some of the big kind of downturns in the economy and downturns in the history of really what we've tracked over the years. It is different than 2008 because guess what? Employment, a lot of the loans are different. Everything's a lot different. So don't go ahead with fear. Be wise, but don't go ahead with fear. I want to dig into some of those events. Let's go all the way back. The Panic of 1785. Overexpansion and ballooning debt caused post-war deflation. Depression of 1807. Trade restrictions pummel shipping-related industries. 1865. Post-American Civil War depression. The Long Depression. This was in 1875. I don't even know some of these, but these are phenomenal history notes. Depression of 1920 to 21. So that's, the Great Depression followed, less than 10 years later, 1929. So think of that, I don't think there's many people that were alive through the Great Depression, but still, that's something that it's going to repeat over time. A lot of people say that, oh, that's it's never going to happen again. Well, yeah, I mean, I think something like COVID, unfortunately, probably will happen again. I'm hoping it's 100 years from now, but it's going to happen again. So don't live life in fear. Recession of 1960. This was when the Fed, they increased their rates, and that placed a lot of strain on the economy. Double dip recession was in the 80s. I don't remember this. I was a baby, but still. And then in 2000, the dot-com bubble. Okay, everyone. Well, I mean, probably more of our listening audience would know dot-com bubble when everyone was putting crazy funding into these dot-coms and they had no business. They just bought a URL and put up a decent looking website, and everyone was investing in them. So that was in 2000. And then the most common was 2008. And they call it the Great Recession, when subprime mortgage crisis causes global financial turmoil. And we're still we're glad that we're out of it, and everyone's thinking, oh, it's going to be another Great Recession. This is Great Recession 2.0. It is, but it's different. So I want to say that from the standpoint of how interest rates are for home buyers, yes, it is going to be pretty rough. But I'll never forget a famous quote by Justin at CPF Mortgage. He said something that was great. I'll never forget it. He said, Justin Kelly said, "You marry the home, not the mortgage." Because guess what? In 10 years, you can refinance that. You can get down from 6.25 or 8.25 or whatever. You can refinance. So I really love that quote. I'm always going to kind of think of him. I'm not sure if he coined it, but I love it. Okay, I want to move on to a couple other things, and that is when it comes to your business and your service, your organization, what services or products you offer, think about it by what sectors are impacted by recessions and how badly are they impacted. In some cases, Orlando Lugo is on the team, and I worked in retail. We worked in retail from, I think, 2008 to 2012, and online retail. And that was a very volatile market, especially after 2008, but it was still very strong, and it wasn't very much impacted by what was going on in the world. So industries most affected by the recession can be restaurants, unfortunately, and food industry. So think about that. If your clients and the services you offer are in that space, in the hospitality space, think about that as far as how can you, diversify your client list and reach out to other not as harshly affected industries. Automotive, oil, gas, those are always going to be hurt pretty hard. Sports and real estate. I already mentioned real estate a couple times. Those are the ones that are typically hurt pretty hard. Ones that I view that aren't going to be affected as much are, healthcare, senior services. Those aren't going anywhere. They're going to need, that's still going to be a thing, and it's still going to be something that's not going anywhere. We have to take care of our elderly and our seniors, so that's not going to change. Freight and logistics. That's always things have to move from one side of the country to the other, so that's not going to change. Electricians, plumbers, people that are anything to DIY or maintenance on homes. Those aren't going to change. That's solid. Cybersecurity, IT support, streaming services, video. Look at what happened. All these streaming services are everywhere now. I get a streaming service every day now. It's like, I need to cancel some. I got too many. But think about that when it comes to what can you offer your customers to kind of, help winter this storm that's coming. Okay, so leading to my point of what can we do to prepare? I have 4 points I want to talk about. Number one is know your business. A lot of people don't know their numbers. They don't know what their overhead is. They don't know what their expenses are. They don't know what anything really is to help them understand how can we weather what's coming. So I recommend know your business, and if you don't already, make sure you sit with your accountant or your financial advisors. I look at it as if you don't know your numbers, well, how can you prepare? So make sure you know your numbers. Lead with wisdom. This is my bullet point number 2. Wisdom is having experience and the knowledge to make good, discerned decisions. I think that a lot of times leaders think, I just need to make a decision, and whoever it impacts, whatever. I would say no. Hold up. Ask some questions. Do a little bit of research. Ask some of the people that it's going to impact. Ask who's doing what in your organization, what roles people are doing, and how they're doing it. Can we adjust and in a sense say, hey, we're going to have to ask you to do this because this is something that we have to really capitalize on now that we're going into this storm. So I would say that lead with wisdom, not just with a, "Hey, I'm going to make decisions. Oh, I was wise." No. You were foolish. You didn't actually do any research. You didn't ask any questions. Third point, optimize operations and cost. A lot of times organizations are doing things that are very costly, and it's not bringing any value. It's not bringing any value to the organization. It's not bringing any value to the customers. So I always like to say, look at your organization, all the services you offer, the products you offer, and say, hey, what can we optimize going into what could be a volatile year? I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a great year. However, I'm probably in the minority there. I think that a lot of people think, oh, 2023 is going to be bad. Well, okay, yeah, they said that about 2020, and actually 2021 is when it really hit hard. So I think that, people don't know. Okay, all these, what do they call them? The people who ask questions. What do they call those people? I'm drawing a blank. They take polling people, pollsters. They don't know. I mean, no one knows. Scientists don't know. So I'm going to say that when it comes to your business, you're going to know the most about your business to make wise decisions on how you can optimize and how you can prepare for what's to come. Last but not least, I also want to talk about, okay, let's flip it. What if you are in a position where you have opportunities that come across? I always like to say that the best time to buy businesses or merge businesses are in down economies, because guess what? People just are like, forget it, we're done, and they sell the business. So be on the lookout for those fire sales. And I hate to say that, but that's when businesses really take off. I think when Netflix blew up was in, I think, from 2008 to 2012. Well, 2008, that was the downturn in the economy. That was the Great Recession. So yet Netflix blew up after that. I mean, they did those DVDs for a couple of years, which was stupid. But once they got streaming going, they exploded. And then look at how prepared they were for what was COVID 2020, 2021, where people just signed up, and Zoom and all these businesses really that offer streaming really exponentially grew. So be on the lookout for those opportunities. Not necessarily buying a business, but it could be, hey, our service is going to really be impactful and helpful to people and businesses in this space. Let's pour our resources and our time and our dedication into this because we know it's going to take off. And there's a lot of industries, even some of the industries that experts are saying are going to suffer, that are doubling down because they know, hey, if they double down and all their competitors drop out and they're the only one in the market, that's brilliant. So think about that when you're looking at, okay, what is coming in the economy, so you can make those wise decisions. Okay. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, make sure you follow and leave a rating and review. Follow us on Instagram if you haven't already, at Energy Hill, and check our website at energyhill.com. Thanks again, and see you next time.